Anastasia's childhood home has been her playground and source of artistic inspiration. With her classical background in arts, metal sculptures coupled with her love for nature and desire to create handmade invitation gifts for her mom, she transitioned beautifully to the botanical illustrator she is today. In this episode, we talked about studying classical art discipline as a foundation, learning the basic techniques of painting, sketching, and drawing, experiencing the best of both worlds as an artist and an art gallery manager, investing in learning and finding the courage to go through detours, and pursuing her passion and staying on the course to live the artist's life. If you want to be part of the conversation, then send in your questions and topics you want us to cover to hello@etcherlab.com. Hey, this is Jessie, and I'm an artist and studio host for Etcher Lab. We believe in your power to create, so we invited artists from all around the globe to inspire you to keep on creating. So join us in this journey and let's celebrate creativity. This is Make More Art, the podcast.
I have a classical art education. So before moving to France, I used to live in Russia where I studied fine arts. And my specialization was applied arts and especially metal sculpture. So that's where metal comes from exactly. The art education in Russia is very, I would say, classical. So I used to study painting, sculpture, drawing. So all the classical disciplines with the focus on the metal, which I never touched since I finished my studies, by the way. So I really found out that it's not really my thing,
I see.
But I was always passionate about painting. Like one of my favorite classes was painting classes. I think studying in this classical way really helped me to get the base, like really the basic like techniques of painting and sketching and drawing, which I think is really, really important for any kind of artist. So I'm really grateful for that. And after my studies, I decided to change a little bit, but because I was also passionate about the art history. And I decided to do a master in Paris, France, in contemporary art management and art history.
Wow.
And that was fun. Yes. I moved to Paris where I stayed for 3 years. And my art project was kind of moved to the side, because I was really concentrated into getting experience in the art management field and everything. And then, a bit of a personal stuff happened because I met my husband and we moved to Italy. After 3 years in Paris, we decided to change, basically. And we moved here. And before moving, I was working in art gallery as a gallery manager. And so nothing to see with drawing, creative stuff, nothing like that. So after moving here, I knew that I live in the south of Italy now. There's nothing related to art here, in terms of job opportunities. So I was pretty conscious that there's no way I will try to find a normal job here. And I just told myself, well, I will try to pursue my passion and I will see where it will bring me. And I was always passionate about nature, as you can see on my Instagram, of course, and nature and illustration. So I like botanical illustration, illustrating plants and animals. That was something that I really liked in the art school as well. And so I decided, why not? I will choose this kind of niche and I will see how it goes. And yes, so I first started as a botanical artist. So I found like a huge community on Instagram of other artists that I really admire. And I started to follow them. I started to take classes. I started to do a lot of practice, basically drawing, painting every day. That's how it all started.
Thank you, Anastasia, for sharing that history of how you started. And you mentioned about the classical way of studying art back in Russia, which helped you develop your style. And I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But somehow from metal and stone. Your major is?
Yes, like metal sculpting. Yes, exactly. So I know several techniques, you know, like of making sculptures with metal. I mean, it's fun, and it's really fun. I used to make jewelry, you know, and like plates with metal and like lamps, you know, all kinds of objects. So basically applied like decorative arts, which is really nice. But I just don't imagine myself with a hammer like and stuff for my whole life, you know.
It's funny because we have some sort of the same background. I studied electronics technology in college, and it involved creating like working with metal sheets. So I created like a disc organizer, and there are other stuff, not jewelries like the one that you did, but I realized that it wasn't for me. That wasn't something that I would like, that I would, see myself doing. So you decided to pursue art further by going to and doing your master's to art management, which is another layer, another shift from what you studied and back in Russia.
Exactly.
What was the decision or the thought process into making that decision to pursue art management?
I mean, it's first of all, I wanted to pursue arts in France because I really like France was in my mind because I spoke French before. I used to study French, and I was dreaming to move to France. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, it was I wanted actually to apply for an art school there, and I failed the exam. And the next year, I was about to try it again, but then my parents, mainly my mother, she was kind of trying to push my focus towards something else because, it's always the same story. Your parents like rarely want you to become an artist, like same old story. So I was okay with that, because I was really passionate about the art history, and I thought, why not? I thought maybe I can be like a curator or something like that. Yes, I was lucky enough to be accepted to this art management school. And during my stay in France, I was still drawing, like sketching and stuff, but not regularly. It was like a hobby, more of a hobby. So it was interesting to be like to see, the artists from the other side, because I was a gallery manager. Right. And I used to talk to artists who were like getting inside of the gallery, asking me like if there was a chance for them to be exposed, to be exhibited and stuff like that. So it was interesting to find myself on the other side, For me, like these 3 years of art management really made me come back to art. Like it was like something natural, Everything started when I started to prepare my marriage, actually. Like just for fun, I will like illustrate invitations, invitations for my marriage. And I had lots of fun doing this project. I mean, it was like, it was quite challenging because I thought it would be easier. But this project really made me start like something creative, after this long period of not doing anything creative at all. And it made me like believe in myself, like, I still can draw, I still can paint, like I was having fun doing it. And I thought like, why not? And after moving to Italy, it was not like the next day I was about to have an Instagram page and like posting every day. It was like step-by-step thing, because when I just moved here, I was kind of looking around, like, what can I do? Like, I did a present for my mother. And she was about to turn 50. And I really wanted to give her something special. Just try to make something with my hands. And she was celebrating her birthday in Poland. And it was the period of blooming of tulips.
Tulips.
In tulips, yes, in April. So I decided that I will paint 50 tulips for her. Oh, yes, and I will... Yes, I had like I have a whole luggage full of paintings because I also framed it by myself and everything, and I brought it to her, and that's when I started to be curious about botanical painting because, like, 50 tulips. Yeah,
that is a lot.
That's a lot, yes. I had about a month to finish this thing. So I was like, okay, I really need to, like, you know, to get into botanical paintings to be able to finish these 50 tulips. So, and she was really happy about the present. So that's that's a good one.
Totally worth it.
And yeah, totally worth it, you know. And then after this this experience, I was like really, like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought, why not, like, botanical painting, it's I really liked, you know, like the vintage feel of it, because like the vintage books, you know, like the vintage botanical books and stuff, and like all the vintage aesthetics, it's something I really like as well.
I just had a lot of fun listening to your story, especially the story about your mom's birthday, the 50 tulips. That was really hard work. And I'm sure she
Oh
loved
yeah.
every piece of your paintings. So just going back quickly, Anastasia, with the art management, I really like the part when you said that you, though it wasn't something that you really wanted, but it gave you an opportunity to see the other side of being an artist, or the other side of the art world, wherein see how all of these artists, you get to interview them. And
Yeah.
at some point you thought, oh, maybe I could be a curator. I've always wanted to work in a museum, in a gallery. What I've gathered from your story is that when it's really your passion and that's your purpose, it will come back to you and it will find you. And reminded when you made that gift for your mom. And there's this book that I was reading, Keep Going, and he talked about make gifts, keep making gifts. And it doesn't have, you don't need to create something that would automatically be a source of income or another stream of income. But what you did was first your wedding invitation, and you realize, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then your mom's gifts. So going through that process, and then what have you learned within that journey of transitions and detours, I would say, that made you the artist that you are right now?
I think the most important thing is like never be afraid of trying stuff. I think like as a child, like I never knew what am I want to do, like what do I want to do as an adult. And that's why like I just started to try stuff, like because I don't know any other like possibility to understand what do you want, because like if you don't try it, you know. So at least when you try and you see you don't like it, well, that's a win already, because you know, okay, this is not mine, something else, I will find something else, you know. I'm still figuring out where all these experiences will bring me, because I still work as a gallery manager, actually, from like in a remotely, but I actually work for a gallery from States. I'm still there, like, you know, I'm still
Okay.
On the both sides, you know. But it's really different, like it's really different, because what I do is illustration. It's like traditional art, detailed illustrations. Like the gallery I work for, they do conceptual contemporary art, which
so those two are very different, but at the same time you get to live in, you know, get the best of both worlds, I would say, of doing the other side of it. And you just need to be able to find the balance. To say, just hearing from your story, what I love about it is that you continue to invest in yourself, but at the same time you continue to push and press on the things that you really want to do. When you constantly mention that you live
in town
again, and you spent a lot of your childhood days over there, and where you were exposed to nature, would you say that that would be your greatest influence why you fell in love with botanical illustration?
Yes, I think so. And the reason why I chose to focus on nature is because in Paris, like the main thing that I was missing is nature. Like it's an amazing city that gives you tons of opportunities, but there's no nature there.
True.
like my lunch pause, I was like trying to find, like, you know, a park or a place to have lunch surrounded by trees, you know, but it was difficult. And this forest that you often see in my pictures on Instagram, this is where I grew up. So my parents have a house there. And I used to go there every summer. So like, this is my forest, you know. I really know each piece of this forest. And every time I get back there, it's like magic, you know. This is like one of the places on earth where like when I'm there, I'm happy. When I was a kid, like nature was something really, really important to me. Like, yeah, like I was always curious about nature, about plants, animals, like everything. And I think that's something that is really like inside of me. Like this is not, I didn't like, this is not by experience that I understood this. Like this thing was always with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when I found out that illustration is what I want to do, it was like very natural, to get concentrated on nature. But like I didn't do it on purpose, because before, like when I was studying arts, I really enjoyed making portraits and landscapes and all different kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, if you do not concentrate on something, it's difficult to find your own way.
Your style, you mentioned that you've started with portraits as well. You tried portraits as well. But your heart is really with botanicals because, like what you said, it's always been there. I mean, growing up and being surrounded by nature, living very close to the forest, like what you said. I think I saw some of your photos where your mom took one of your shots. You were
Yeah.
a photographer for that day. But when was the last time that you were there?
It was about like 5 months ago, maybe.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was actually during the pandemic, and then it was difficult to come back home, but I managed to do it because I'm a Russian citizen still, so it was possible.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was about 5 months ago, I think.
Okay, so that's still recent. I mean, growing up in that place, that must be so magical. I think you mentioned magic earlier in one
Yeah.
of your statements, and I can just imagine being there and knowing every nook and corners of that forest, and now being able to really, even though you're not there, draw from memory and capture it through your illustrations. That is just simply.
I have tons of references too, because each time I go there, I'm like taking thousands of pictures of everything I see. And like I have stuff to draw for years, but I still keep taking pictures just because I was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Like these mushrooms. Oh my God. I have like tons of
Yeah,
pictures.
I saw the
All
photos
kinds
of the
of
mushrooms. Yeah, and they were like, it's very up close, and sometimes you just don't get to see them that close, and you don't get to appreciate them. But when you capture them and then painted them, it's like an entirely different perspective altogether. And I think that's the beauty of illustrations as well. Is that the style that you started with, the realistic and then the colors that are vibrant?
Yeah, I think like my realistic style is, I think it's related to the classical education, because obviously you need to draw realistically there.
Yes.
And I was okay with that. And I was inspired by the old like 18th century illustrations, botanical illustrations, and like in these old books. And I really like this like style, like it's realistic, but at the same time you can see that this is an illustration. Like this is not a photorealistic, not a photorealist illustration. And that's what I was trying to like imitate in the beginning. And then at the end, like I really like one Russian artist, botanical artist. Her name is Svetlana Lance. She's like really, she was my top botanical artist, and I used to take a lot of her online classes, and she's on Instagram too, so I was following like all of her directs on Instagram to see how she paints, and I learned like a lot from her, and, like in terms of technique and like everything. But she's really into like hyper realist illustration. And at a certain point, I realized that this is not what I want to express. I don't want like my stuff to be like a photo, but hers is not as well. But I mean, she's trying to achieve as much realism as she can. But I think in my illustrations, I try to do something else. I don't know. There's one more artist that I really love. Her name is Saga Maria, and she's from Sweden. And she has this style that is realistic, but at the same time, it's also decorative. And yes, I was inspired by her a lot as well. But basically, it's like, when you paint, you don't think, like, you just, your hand does it for you. So,
True.
so sometimes what I end up with is just like, because my hand can do this. So that's what I, maybe in the future, like, I will be up to something else. But yeah.
We will see that, definitely. But I think I saw that post wherein you mentioned some of the artists that you're inspired by, and I did check on them as well, and they're really, really great artists as well. Like what you said, very realistic. Speaking of like following artists, this is also a common question that people would ask when they're starting. Would you say it's a good advice to copy first from someone that you're like a specific style that someone is using, or an artist like a seasoned artist, and start out with that style instead of like drawing and drawing and then eventually finding out your own style?
I think there's no, like, recipe, because everyone has his own journey, but I don't have anything against copying artists. The only thing, I think, if you really like copy consciously, if you copy someone, I think you should not like post it or sell it as your own stuff, because you can easily offend the artist, obviously. So if you really want to copy the artwork or to do an artwork like highly inspired by someone, I would not recommend maybe like telling it's yours. Like, maybe you can tell I was inspired by the artist and this art, but it's a good exercise. I think it's a really, really good exercise to see how the artist works, and then you can like you can use these methods in the future. But I think going your own way and starting from scratch and drawing and then figuring out your own style is a very good option too. I think making both, maybe it's the best thing to do, because like I think as artists we often see other artists work, and unconsciously maybe we try to use same, like, I don't know, compositions or get inspired by the style. And I think it's okay. Like, there's nothing that was invented from zero. Like, art means like everybody copies everybody, it just means you need to copy in an intelligent way, I would say. So like you can copy from different artists and make like a sort of your own thing without really copying one person, maybe, I would say.
That is really good advice, Anastasia, and thank you for sharing that. I think it's a really good advice for someone who's starting and is very confused as to what style they would like to use for their drawing.
I think you should not overthink the style. I think it's like, I know style is a big thing in our community, because everyone is, oh, I don't have a style yet. I mean, it's not a big deal. You can also have a style and then you will become tired of your style and need to change your style. So, it's not, several artists have several styles. Like, I have different styles. And I think it's not, like, you should not overthink this style thing. Just keep going and the style will find you,
Very reassuring. Thanks, Anastasia. Like what you hear so far? Make More Art, the podcast, is made possible by listeners like you. Mitchell Design said, a great variety of artists represented in this podcast. A good one for listening in the car as I run errands. Miss Coca from YouTube said, oh wow, this was epic. I learned so much from this. Keep up the good work. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show. We're nearing the episode, but I'd like to mention, speaking of style and learning from other artists, you will be teaching with us this coming October. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. We will definitely tell you when the exact date is, but you will be doing a live demo and a mini workshop, so do watch out for it. But what will you be demonstrating with us for the live demo?
I chose mushrooms as subject because mushrooms, because that's I think it's my favorite subject, and I know that in my community, mushrooms, like, people always like mushrooms.
Yes.
So I thought it would be fun to illustrate different kinds of mushrooms. So maybe starting from something more basic. and then going towards something more elaborated, something more complicated. And I think also that mushrooms are really nice subjects to start with, because it's like basic shapes, you know. To be able to illustrate something more difficult, you need to first learn how to illustrate simple things. So I think mushrooms are pretty good for to starting out with, even for like artists who don't have experience with natural subjects and stuff like that. And I think natural subjects in general are very good to start with, even if in the future you want to illustrate, I don't know, portraits, landscapes, or human beings, any kind. I think even if you think that in the future you want to do something else, it's a nice exercise if you start from natural subjects.
Nature. Yeah. Thank you,
nature, yeah.
Anastasia. Those are something to look forward to, especially to our listeners who are excited to see live demo and of course her mini workshop. So please do watch out for that. The final question would be a mantra that you live by that influence how you create.
Like, don't afraid of trying something new, I think.
Okay.
And be consistent. Yeah, being consistent is really important. And I think having fun, like have fun. This is probably the most important one, because if you're consistent and if you're like, even if you're doing something you love, but you overwork yourself, you can just get burned out and you can just leave it all. So I think it's important to have rest and to, you know, to ask yourself, like, am I having fun? Like, am I still having fun? And if the answer is no, like, try to do something with that.
Okay. Really good insights and wisdom. I think having fun is something that when you're working on something, you're really passionate. Sometimes when you begin to focus, the joy of doing and having fun with it kind of pushed aside. And so to your perspective and to what you just said, getting enough rest and always finding the fun in what you do definitely help.
Exactly.
Anastasia, it's been a pleasure having you on Make More Art. I love your stories.
For me too.
I mean, just looking at your Instagram and your hometown where you grew up, it's just magical. And even though you don't live there anymore, you get to share the place with us through your art, through what you create in your illustrations and your botanicals, which are really, really very detailed, so beautiful, which I'm sure people are so interested to watch you do that, create those, specifically the mushroom on your live demo. So please do watch out for that. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and please take care of yourself. We'll get to see more of you as you paint with us here at Etcher. And thanks again for joining the Make More Art podcast.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Jessie. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye. I had the best time chatting with Anastasia. Seeing her works and hearing her talk about her hometown transported me to her beloved forest. Art has indeed a way of doing that. Would you guys agree? What do you think about this episode? Are you into botanical illustrations too? Well, do share with us your comments and feedback through the blog post associated with this podcast at etcherlab.com/Anastasia. Want to know what goes behind the scenes here at Etcher? We heard ya. We are lifting the curtain and giving you VIP access to do just that. Get to know who does what here at Etcher Lab. Joining me today for the Etcher Team Spotlight is Andre Fernandez. He is our content officer, and you probably have seen our videos on YouTube. He is the guy behind that. He is described as, this is very interesting, a botanical nerd with questionable spending habits. And Andre, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do within Etcher?
Hi guys. So I'm Andre. I'm a content officer here in Etcher. And as Jessia said, I'm part of the people who make the podcast happen. So aside from that, I make some mini workshop ads, posters for the websites, some product ads, and mostly for content creation.
Is it something that you've always wanted to do, or did you study it back in college, or How did you end up doing content for Etcher?
So I graduated from multimedia arts with a multimedia arts degree, and from then on, I've mostly been doing graphic design and video editing, some animations here and there,
Ooh.
and I do everything under the sun, but not as complicated and in depth as the regular specialist does. So I found this job listing from my friend,
Oh.
and it fits all the criteria of what I wanted to do. So that's how I became one of Etcher's content officers.
So it was your friend who told
It's
you.
Justin, and I hope he's gonna get interviewed soon because he's a really great person. He introduced me to this job, and I got in. Thank God. And
yeah. Thanks,
yeah.
Andre. It sounds interesting. Can you take me through what a typical day looks like for a content officer?
So I wake up. Usually we have work monthly that we do for ads, and I try to segment them from graphic design to video. I do the graphic design first to get me warmed up for the day because they're kind of the easier ones, and then to the heavy stuff, which is the video editing.
I see.
And some animations if there's needed. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like you're spread out through different things.
Yeah.
Content. There are a lot of things under content. So given that, what would you say your most favorite part of content creation? Which aspect under content creation is your most favorite?
Under content creation, I think my favorite ones are the posters and the podcasts because it's so interesting. Honestly, it's so interesting to listen to the podcast, and I really, even though I don't have to edit much of it, I still watch through it because it's interesting. And honestly, art is one of the things that I want to further myself with. And I grew up, painting here and there, and ever since I got into Etcher, I got in depth with it, and I didn't have to try because I have to edit the podcast. But yeah, that's the interesting part of my work, honestly.
That's really great to hear, Andre. I think that's really the effect, the Etcher effect, I would say. It allows us to make more art. So
it really gets you into art.
That's true. That's
working under Etcher. Yeah.
That's great. Andre, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's just a few minutes, but you've been great. I love all the videos that you've been doing
My pleasure.
for the podcast and the content that you've been creating. So keep doing that. And I look forward to seeing
my best.
you get tired editing my podcast as well. But it's been fun chatting with you. And I can see your plants behind you. So definitely a botanical nerd.
Yeah.
How many?
I try my best to keep them alive.
How many plants do you have?
By my last count, it was around 90 plus. I have some downstairs still at the garden area, but I feel like they've
90 plus
increased since then. Yeah, I've gotten a few plants here and there, and I get more by propagating them. So yeah.
Wow. And questionable spending habits?
I'd rather not.
Okay. We'll get that part out. Thanks, Andre, for being on Make More Art, and we'll see more of you through the videos that we have on Etcher.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Andre.
Thanks, Jessie. Have a nice day.
So thanks.
Bye.
We would love to hear your thoughts, so please drop us a 5-star review on the Apple Podcast, or you can find us on YouTube at Etcher Studio. And hitting the subscribe button is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you again next time. Until then, let's make more art.